Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Develop podcast series. This is Danielle Reynolds joining you today. I've got an exciting guest with us, Brett Murphy from our Austin office. Brett, welcome to the Develop podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, well, we are excited to get to learn more about you and your journey through public accounting and all that you've mastered. So let's just dive right in. So just give us a little intro about you. Where were you born? Where are you from? Where you went to school?
Sure. Yeah, so born in San Antonio, moved to the big city of Bernie when I was 5 years old and started kindergarten there and went all the way through high school and followed one of my brothers was up at Texas Tech. And so I went and visited him and ended up going to school up there and started out as preclinical laboratory science major.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I thought I was going to go into pharmacy, did the whole health occupation, Students of America, throughout high school, and got to tech. And I realized you have to be pretty decent at science and chemistry and things like that I wasn't very interested in. So junior year, switched majors. Or actually, I took half education, half accounting classes. First semester, junior year, liked both. Throughout high school, I was told, by a lot of my coaches, hey, you'd be, great football coach and a great coach and teacher. And so I thought about that and took half the classes, ended up deciding, it'd be a heck of a lot easier to start out in accounting and switch to education rather than vice versa. And so I went the accounting route. Got my fix through coaching Special Olympics for a handful of years before switching over to T-ball and soccer for my kids.
Yeah.
Graduated Texas Tech December of 2006, and then started my career in Dallas.
Love it. Okay, so you switched kind of late in your college career going to accounting. So how was that, I guess, going through the recruiting process? So did you still go through the recruiting process? What was that like for you?
Well, it was a little bit interesting. Yeah, it was very late. So switched over, like I said, my first semester junior year. Second semester junior year, we start the recruiting process. And so I had just taken my intro to financial accounting class the semester prior, started intermediate, was really liking intermediate, jumped into the accounting recruiting process. At that time, with the amount of hours that I had, I went straight for looking for a full-time job as opposed to an internship. Got the question, what do you want, audit or tax? I said, I have no idea. I had absolutely no idea what an audit was. Accounting was brand new to me. First generation college graduate. So, my dad was a horologist, or is a horologist, which horology is the study of time. He's got a clock and watch shop down in San Antonio. My mom works for UTSA, and on the side, my dad's a football official. And so one of his good friends happened to be a CPA and said, hey, if your boy likes math, they're hiring a ton of accountants right now. This is right after SOX 404 got rolled out. So recommended that I look at accounting and auditing. And after going through the recruiting process, I just said, hey, I'll go wherever you need me. Where should I go? And everybody said, you've got more of that audit personality. So you should go that path. And especially if you're like an intermediate, you should do that. And so did that. Went Big Four right out of college, and was with the KPMG in Dallas for 2 years before I made the switch over to Jones Baggett. So good buddy of mine in college was Kyle Willie, who's also a fellow partner now here at Willie Penn up in Plano. He started with Cecil right out of college. And so he got me to go over there, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. Joined them in January of 2009. And so I've been with that group ever since.
Yeah. So what a transition from, preclinical education, accounting, and look at you now. I think audit seems like the perfect fit for you too. So it kind of just all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, it took a while to get here, but it actually worked out perfectly, Danielle. The good thing with switching majors is I had 150 hours with no problem. So I actually didn't go to grad school because I had all the hours I needed. I just had to take a few extra accounting classes. And so I can tell you a whole lot of nothing about chemistry from my experience of starting out in preclinical laboratory science. That was my motivation to get out, I think. But yeah, it took a few additional classes in a few different areas that aren't really applicable to my degree, but have been beneficial, I think, in the long run. Outside of the whole science aspect, the education piece, I think, has been beneficial as well from the classes that I took
Yeah,
while I was trying to figure out my major.
absolutely. Well, hopefully when your boys got, in high school learning chemistry, they might come to dad with all the questions and the homework help.
Danielle, I'd like them to pass.
Yeah.
So have better than a C, I think is what I got in that class. Maybe a D. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, so no, they're gonna have to go to mom for that one.
yeah. Well, so fun. So, okay, so what were some skills then you learned that like back going through, school, whether it's switching majors, navigating through that early on in your career, some skills you learned then that still play a role now in your life or in your career?
I don't know about skills from switching majors, but just going through the recruiting process, um, just with a positive attitude, just open to anything. At that point, I was just excited to have a job waiting for me and have the opportunity to have something lined up
Mhm.
a year out from graduation or over a year out from graduation. And so I just kind of went into the with the mindset of I'm going to talk to anybody and everybody, and just be myself. Bring my natural personality and high energy to the table, and just be willing to run with whatever opportunity presented itself to me. And so I don't know. I feel like I've still kind of carried that mentality. I don't know that I picked it up then, but yeah, I just took the I guess really what I took away from that whole process was being in a more formal environment, more of a business environment. That was really my first exposure, I think, to getting dressed up and wearing suits and having to interact with a bunch of people that I didn't really know all that well. Especially growing up in small town Texas, and then going to tech and kind of finding a group of friends. It was the first time I had to really go out, sit down in a business professional environment and interact with folks. And so that translates to what I'm doing today and what I've done really throughout my career. On the audit side and going out there meeting with new folks to either bring in new business or meeting with new clients. So that's probably the biggest takeaway, I guess, looking back on the recruiting process.
Yeah. Well, you certainly make it look very natural. Like that's it. That is a natural skill for you to connect with people and talk with them. And kind of it's fun to see it. You started out Big Four, but you had a connection. You mentioned Kyle, Willie, who is here at Whitley Penn, and kind of keeping up with those connections that you met. We even tell students now how important it is to start building your network now, right? You never know when a connection is going to come back into play, even the students that you're with in school. So kind of
Oh, yeah.
full circle.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then even, whenever we joined, or whenever I joined Jones Baggett over there with Kyle and Cecil, brought over a lot of friends that, I met along the way through the recruiting process. So we had Mark Beeler, who's now with us down in San Antonio. He joined us. I met him at KPMG, and he joined us over there. Wes Belding was a buddy of mine that I met through the recruiting process at Texas Tech. He joined us. Stephen Moore's wife, Katie Moore, she came over with us as well. I guess about 6 months after I joined Jones Baggett, and I had met her through the recruiting process too. So so Jones Baggett became to be a place where a lot of the ties that Kyle and I had through the recruiting process ended up getting back together a few years later. So it's pretty neat to see. And then even looking back now, you look at Whitley Penn, you've got Cameron Sampler, who Cecil worked with many years ago, and then I met Cameron and Kyle and I met Cameron at Jones Baggett, and then now Cameron joined us, I guess, back in October, I think, this past year. So the ties last forever. It's important to stay in contact with people. I think Kyle Willie did a good job with Cameron. He always touched base with him quite a bit. saw a good opportunity for him and brought him in. And same with Mark Beegler down in San Antonio. Saw a good opportunity for him. That's a market we've always been interested in, and so we're excited to have both those guys join us.
Yeah.
All from Little Jones Baggett, which was about 20 folks before we merged. So
exciting stuff and lots of good tips right there. So young Brett, you started out, you said Big Four, then went to Jones Baggett. You mentioned 20 people. What were any struggles, if any? What were some struggles you experienced early on in your career, and how did you kind of navigate through those?
Yeah, there's a lot of struggles. I think, and this is something that sticks with me today, and I tell everybody that joins our team is that, whenever I first started in public accounting, I thought I had to know everything. Scared to ask questions because I was worried how that would be perceived by my mentors or seniors that I was working with. And so what I learned now looking back, and what I tell staff that join us, seniors, managers, everybody, is when somebody first joins us, we expect you to know nothing. It's expect you to have that foundation, right, of understanding of accounting, but they really expect you to know nothing. We're here to
teach. Their eyes always get real big when you say that.
yeah, it's like, no, trust me. So don't hesitate to ask questions. So that was one of the biggest takeaways that's really stuck with me is that expectation. We're continuously learning. Even today, I'm still learning. So that was the biggest thing was, hey, look, you got to make people feel as comfortable as possible and realize it's okay to not know everything and just know what you don't know. So that was kind of my biggest takeaway from first starting out. Then I went over when I joined Jones Baggett. It's a little bit different, right? You go from the big firm where you've got the happy hours and recruiting and all that stuff, and now we're going to a smaller firm, a little bit more intimate feel, no recruiting. I went over there thinking I was a hot shot. Oh man, I got this. This Big Four, and I'm coming into Jones Baggett. I'm going to teach these guys some things, and I got slapped in the face real quick.
I was going to say, they shot you down real quick.
Well, I could audit the heck out of cash, I think, back then, but that was about it. I didn't really see the whole audit come together like we did at Jones Baggett and like we do now at Whitley Penn. Those audit engagements we were working on were so large, you would focus on certain areas and one industry. And so you're kind of stuck on that area. And so you didn't really get to see, in my opinion, in my experience, the full picture and how everything comes together. And so when I joined Jones Baggett, you're working on, it was new industries for me. I was working on a lot of banks at that time, which I hadn't dealt with previously, and same with benefit plans. So yeah, you got to see the whole audit and have responsibilities from beginning to end, including writing the report. So that took some time to get accustomed to, and it was a wake up call of hey, just nobody's better than anybody. Doesn't matter about your experience or where you come from. Everything's a little bit different, and everybody knows something that you probably don't know. And so learned a lot from that experience as well. So those are probably the two biggest takeaways looking back to early on auditor Brett. Back to 2008, 2009, 2010.
Yeah. Okay, so you got Big Four, then you go smaller firm, and then Jones Baggett merges in with Whitley Penn.
Yeah.
Walk us through that. So what year was that? What level were you at? How did you kind of seen it all now at this point, right?
That's
so
right.
How has your career evolved as you've progressed, all these years since starting out?
Yeah, so the neat thing about my experience is I love it from the recruiting standpoint, because I can honestly speak from experience about the various size firms. One of the key components when you're going through the recruiting process is what size firm is going to be the best for me. And so the neat thing with my experience is I've done small, medium, and large. And so anyway, going back to the merger, we merged November 2014. First thoughts were probably a little bit of frustration. Kyle, Willie, and I had, this great plan which I don't know if Cecil ever knew this, but our plan was, hey, we're going to take over this firm, whenever Cecil retires. This is going to be our firm. It's going to be awesome. And so at first there's a little bit of disappointment, super comfortable where I was. knew exactly where I stood with Cecil. And so going back into Whitley Penn, or merging into Whitley Penn, was a new experience. And so I was a little bit nervous at first, and like I said, probably a little bit disappointed. But right before we merged, we had a happy hour in the Dallas office. Got to see a lot of familiar faces that I met through the recruiting process or through Texas Tech. And then we even got invited back then. We had the firm trip still. And so we were out in Florida right before the merger. So we got to go out there the weekend before we merged and join the firm on that trip. And so I got to meet a lot of the folks at the firm in the various offices. So, it was exciting from that standpoint. Once I kind of realized, once we had that happy hour, once we had that firm trip, I was like, man, this is kind of the best of both worlds. All right. One of the things that I really enjoyed about the Big Four that I missed with Jones Baggett were those happy hours and the camaraderie outside of the office, with more than just a few people. And so we got that back. I've always been passionate and, excited to be involved in the recruiting side of things. And so, when you're at a smaller firm like Jones Baggett, you're not really on campus in person. You might, have some postings, and that's really it. So I was excited about that. And so kind of once I got my feet in the door, I got real excited about the opportunity. Obviously, it presented a lot more opportunity for me. I think my path to partnership was probably quicker than it would have been had we stayed at Jones Baggett. And it opened the door for us to get to interact with a lot more of our friends that were in various industries. Jones Baggett, we specialize in financial institutions, and so this kind of opened the door to go after anybody and everybody. And we'd always been encouraged from day one about getting out and about, networking, grabbing drinks with friends, and seeing what kind of business opportunities are out there. So, but yeah, anytime you go through a merger, there's change.
Sure.
There was excitement. There's definitely probably frustration along the way, and but at the end, I think it was probably one of the best things for us as a firm. I think you look at our group that's come over from Jones Baggett, and you got what, 4 partners: Melinda Jones, Cecil Jones, Kyle, and myself, and you got 2 senior managers that joined us recently. So for little old Jones Baggett, I think we've done okay, and it's been pretty beneficial, hopefully for both parties.
Yeah. And I feel like too, when you guys merged in, that was, Whitley Penn was a lot smaller back then too, relative to what we are now. So you've got to witness all of the growth Whitley Penn has had, from starting just being Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston to now where we're at. So that was a good time. You've seen a lot of change happen.
Yeah. I think whenever we joined, I want to say we're probably somewhere around 60 million in revenue. 800 employees, and I don't know, 30, 40 partners, something like that. So yeah, we more than doubled in size. Really, Cecil and Kyle and Melinda and I like to say, really, that growth just really exploded after that Jones Baggett merger. We just brought in all this momentum with us and helped take us to where we're at today. So yeah, from the ex Jones Baggett employees, we'd like to take a lot of credit for the growth that's happened over the years.
Love it. Take the credit. So, so with all these changes, all the experiences you've gone through, what are the biggest things you've learned transitioning into a leadership role, right? Do you think you are a different leader now than maybe you would have been if you didn't experience, really everything?
Yeah. So, I kind of revert back to starting out again. Transitioning to the leadership role, it's a new experience for me. It was entirely different. It was a pretty unique experience, I think, especially compared probably to a lot of partners. I think more times than not, people are in their market for a number of years and then get promoted. For me, I moved to Austin shortly after getting promoted, and obviously we didn't have any sort of audit practice here. And so it was a little bit of a challenge at first, just because I was somewhat on an island in terms of at least having, people close by that I could talk to, and mentors were now a phone call away rather than being right next door. So yeah, I think what I really learned from that is, even though it's kind of out of sight, I've been fortunate enough to work in the Dallas office and Fort Worth office, and had a number of mentors in really every office, to where I was able to lean on various people throughout my early years in the partnership, as I'm getting my feet wet and learning how to kind of look at the audit from the partner standpoint, how to develop business on my own. And then, there's always bumps in the road along the way. And so, really fortunate to have mentors. And I think that starts day one as a staff. And it really doesn't stop even to, when you're a partner. I've still got people that I rely upon, that I'll call and look for guidance. And so I think that's been the biggest thing and it really, I think, goes back to my comment about reiterating to the staff about, hey, know what you don't know and don't be scared to ask questions. I think that hits home even more as a partner, especially for me. I started, working on new industries as well. Not only did I relocate, it was the audit partner of Austin. So anything that would come in the door or any opportunity I could get, I was chasing it. And so a lot of times that meant auditing and working with new entities or entities that are in industries I hadn't experienced before. So I think taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you in terms of when somebody reaches out to you and tries to take you in and mentor you, to run with that and take advantage of it. And I think that's been one of the keys to my success here in Austin is having just a handful of mentors that I can reach out to at any point in time.
Yeah, love that. Well, okay, so you started talking about this, but let's start it in Dallas. You forgot to mention Fort Worth in there. You went straight to Austin. So walk us through kind of your role in every office, which ended up right where you're at now in the Austin market, the audit market leader down there, really building the audit practice down there since we didn't have anything before. Walk us through that and how that all evolved.
Yeah. So, so I spent the first 10 years of my career in Dallas, or 10-ish years, I guess I should say, more like 9. Right whenever we merged, had just gotten married. Got married July 14. Hopefully my wife's is listening, so she can hear that I just remembered that it was in fact July 14.
We'll pull that clip and just send it.
Yeah, we send this to her. And so right when we merged, like I said, I got married. We had first child pretty shortly thereafter. And then I guess we're about a year and a half in to the merger, and maybe even less. We found out baby boy 2 was on its way. And so I was in a little tutu in Dallas over the M streets, and we're outgrowing that house. And so we're like, all right, we got to look around and see where we want to go. And my wife graduated high school in Fort Worth. Fort Worth was a place that I always saw to be a little bit more of my speed. And so I moved over there with the intent of digging our heels in. Talked to John Valance and a lot of the team members over there about transitioning over there. I thought it'd be beneficial for Kyle, Willie, and I to separate ourselves a little bit more. Primarily, I was tired of Felix Lozano calling me Kyle every time he saw me. So I was like, all right, we got to separate so they know that we're not one and the same. Just kidding. So moved there with the full intent of, hey, this is where we're going to raise our family. Love Fort Worth. In-laws were 10 miles down the road, and totally happy there. And then I started seeing these emails, going out about, hey, looking for senior manager to go down to Austin, start up the audit practice, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the first time I saw it, kind of ignored it. It's like, no way. And I think 6 months later, I saw it again, or a few months later, saw it again. And said, you know what, I'm gonna look into this opportunity. I spoke to my wife, said, hey, there's this opportunity in Austin. I think I could be a good fit. What do you think? And so she said, well, you don't even know what the opportunity is. You got to go talk to people first. And so started that process, spoke to some of our leaders, got their thoughts and about me going down to Austin and starting up the practice. I'm trying to think, when was that? I guess that was summer of 17. And so we had just acquired Wagner, Eubanks, and Nichols up in Dallas, January 17, I believe. And so they had a small tax firm that they acquired here in Austin the year prior. So they had, I don't know, about 7 folks, just fully tax only. And so anyway, yeah, so talked to some of the partners. They said, yeah, we think you'd be a great fit down there, and you've got my support. And so ended up doing that, made the decision, I guess, fall or winter of 2017. Got promoted to partner January 18, and then moved down here the tail end of May 18, and kind of hit the ground running. So yeah, I've kind of done the tour-a-day Whitley Penn. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Houston too. Got a few bank clients down in the Houston market, so I worked with that team quite a bit. So really, been involved with pretty much every office. Spent time in every office, I guess, with the exception of West Texas or the Permian Basin folks. But yeah, so got to see a lot in terms of different size accounting firms and really every office of Whitley Penn.
Yeah, that is so cool. I feel like you're the only one that can say that. So love it. So what's the most exciting thing about being in the Austin market, personally or professionally? I'm sure it's different than the other markets you've been in.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, so there's a lot of exciting things, both from the personal standpoint and the business standpoint. From the personal standpoint, I'll start there. A lot of people actually don't talk about this, Danielle, but it's actually a great city to raise a family in. It's a very family-friendly town. There's a lot of great restaurants that have playscapes, which, as a new parent, will become more and more important. You can find a place where you can let your kids run wild, but you can enjoy a nice glass of wine or beer or whatever it may be. And so Austin's got a lot of outdoor restaurants that are, great local restaurants. That's fun for the kids as well. And so that from that standpoint is great, as well as all the outdoor activities here. It's hard to beat the hill country. As somebody that grew up in the hill country, it feels a little bit more like home to me being back down here. Just love going back out the back roads. We kind of live out by the city park, so we drive through this winding road to get back to our house, and just reminds me of my childhood. So a lot of the nostalgia involved in it for me, I think, from the personal standpoint. You got the lakes and all that, and so it's just a lot of fun. It's a fun place. There's a great energy in this town, both from the personal standpoint and business standpoint. You got so many folks moving here, startup businesses are relocating their headquarters to Austin. So from the business standpoint, though, it's a lot of fun. It's way more laid back. So Austin's probably unlike any other market, where most markets you've got to wear a jacket to a meeting, I feel like, and you kind of get frowned upon if you're not wearing a button down in the jacket, I feel like, or at least back in the day, that's how it was. And down here, if you wear a jacket, they're looking at you like, who the hell are you and why are you going to fire us? So when I first came down here, I was meeting folks in slacks and a button down, and I'd show up and they'd be in board shorts and a tank top ready to hit the lake. And so I learned real quick that the style down here, the business environment is a little bit different than DFW or Houston. And so I actually love it. I pretty much wear my everyday normal attire that I would wear outside of work to work. So that part's nice. It's just, super easy going. But then there's just a ton of opportunity. So we've grown quite a bit since we've been down here. I know when I first came down here, I was kind of a nervous wreck, like, oh my gosh, like I've got to grow. I've got to build this book, and, I've got to run around and meet everybody, which I tried to. But yeah, I was worried about, making sure that I grew my book, because unlike a lot of other partners where you have, a decent sized book, the day you get promoted, I did not. I had a lot of room to grow. I came down here with a smaller book than you typically get. I had what I call my lifeblood of a book, which was just small enough to keep me busy and, enough to have some sort of revenue. But a lot of what I've got now has been stuff that we had to pick up along the way. And, fortunately for us, we've had a lot of success. And so that's probably been the most fun is going out and getting new business each year. I started out with, I don't know, the 10 or so clients, I think, maybe 15, and we're up to over 50 now in, just about 4 years. And the book's probably about 4 or 5 times the size it was from day one. And so It's been a lot of fun, and you know, it's just like I said, it's a super laid back environment where I can go out and be myself, be laid back, and it works down here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and really I'm not seeing any sort of sign of it slowing down anytime soon. We still got a lot of folks moving here. We still got a lot of opportunities that are coming in the door. It just seems like each year there's more and more opportunity. And so it was also fun to come down here and, you know, kind of take ownership of this market. And, you know, came down here essentially by myself with, you know, no staff or anything like that. So it's been fun to see the opportunities for the folks that are on our team to get to develop as well, and see the opportunities that are presented to them. So
Yeah, lots of opportunity to grow. It's a fun
100%. Yeah.
market. So let's talk a little bit about involvement, whether that's getting involved internally at the firm or externally with different organizations or associations. I know you're involved a lot, both internally and externally. So I want you to touch on the importance of that and why it's so beneficial to you. I really think both personally for the skills you learn and professionally to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of times when you get involved, it gives you the opportunity to experience leadership quicker, and you know, really from the personal standpoint, you know, I've always had something that I did outside of work. You know, like I mentioned earlier, did Special Olympics for 6 or 7 years up in Dallas with the Notre Dame School of Dallas. You know, it's just nice to give back. And it's just it's fun to be involved with something where you feel like you're making a difference in somebody's life. And so for me, that's why, you know, I've always tried to be involved in something or another. You know, Special Olympics was something that special to me, and something that I really learned a lot from. And just, you know, it's just great to see people in that scenario showing off their abilities and seeing the amount of pride they have for doing something that, you know, to you know, regular kid, you know, may just be an everyday type of activity, but to see them really appreciate those moments that they don't always get to experience, I think just really good for the soul, good for you personally.
Yeah.
I think it kind of helps change your outlook on life a little bit if need be. But yeah, so I think it's always important to be involved externally. I've always tried to be involved with some sort of organization or in some form or fashion. From the professional standpoint, I think it's important as well. You know, it's for me, it's a lot of my opportunities have come from those professional organizations. I've always been involved with IBAT, the Independent Bankers Association of Texas. To me, that's kind of what I live for, you know, in terms of the professional side of things. You know, I actually talked to Cecil Jones probably a time or two back when I was a manager about leaving and going into industry. You know, passionate about banking, and I had a few opportunities flung my way, and so I talked to Cecil about it. And you know, then, you know, I kind of realized, well, shoot, when I do that, I got to sit behind the desk the whole time. That's it. I guess I can be a part of organizations, but I don't really get to go out and network as much. I'm just the accountant. So for me to be part of these organizations is less meaningful, you know, to that bank or whatever organization I might have joined. But you know, so being involved with these types of groups has always been something that's important to me, because that's been the business development side. It's where I get to go out, have fun, make new friends that hopefully will eventually be clients. And we've seen that. And so a lot of my clients today have come from those events and these organizations that I've been a part of, either directly or indirectly. So now I'm at the age where a lot of my friends that I've made from IBAT are starting their own banks. And so, you know, I've helped a few friends kind of, you know, get that process completed and get their banks off the ground and up and running. And so that's been a lot of fun. But then I'm also involved with other organizations where, you know, I'm meeting other networkers. And so those folks have provided us with a lot of opportunities, especially here in Austin. Yeah, I've met a lot of bankers along the way, and they've presented us with a lot of opportunities. And so I think it's highly important. And I think the sooner you can get involved, the better. I think it makes it more enjoyable. I think it was Joe that, you know, mentioned, I think it was the career life balance, right? And so I think there's a lot of truth to that, especially at Whitley Penn. in a firm our size, because really it meshes. Your career and your life can mesh if you wanted to. And that's kind of the way I've always looked at it is, look, I'm out here to make friends. And I want to, be friends with folks that I think, have got the same drive that I do and that can be successful. Both just because I enjoy being around those kind of individuals, but then on top of that, there's opportunity that will come from that will help me grow the firm. And so I think if you look at it from that lens of the career life blend, where it's just all one. It makes work way more enjoyable. B, I think it'll make you more successful at the end of the day too, because when your personal network is also your business network, your spouse gets involved. Your spouse knows your clients, and she's fully aware of who I'm working with. She knows the kids of some of the folks that I'm working with, and I don't know. It's way more enjoyable from that standpoint. So sorry, I might have gotten off on the tangent there, but
no, I love it. I think
for me,
you really touched on the importance and how you've been able to make your life, your career, what you want it to look like, right? I mean, you get to go out there, make friends, do what you're good at, and also help them along the way. Like you said, you have the full support of your family. They all kind of blend together. It makes everything more enjoyable.
Yeah, 100%. And so, yeah, like you said, you kind of get to do it your way. And, the firm, I think, has been really great about that. When I came down here, it wasn't like, hey, Brett, do this, do that. It's, hey, look, you've done enough to get yourself to this position. Do what you do.
Yeah.
And of course, they could help point me in the right direction, or if I wasn't sure, I could reach out to somebody. But one of the best things is when I came down here, at first I kind of felt like Will Ferrell in Talladega Nights. Like I've been doing this my whole life, my whole career. Like Will Ferrell had been a race car driver, and then he gets in the wreck and he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. It's like he lost his way. When I came down here at first, it's kind of like, all right, what do I do? I'm down here now, and how do I get this thing going? What do I need to do? And it's just kind of did what I've always done. And the firm kind of allowed me to do it my way, and fortunately, I think it's worked out well so far. So hopefully we keep on rolling the way we are.
I think you will keep doing a lot of great things. It's been exciting to watch. So what are some of your best tips for navigating, I guess, busy season, or whenever you're feeling unmotivated? What do you turn to? What are some of your tips on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. You always get that busy season burnout. It's going to happen. And then maybe it's not even busy season. You're going to experience a time where you just feel burnt out. And, I think a lot of the times you think the ticket is trying something new. And I know that certainly came up for me. Like I mentioned earlier, I talked to Cecil about, potentially, switching roles and going into industry. I think, you just got to take a step back. You can't make any sort of rash decision. You've got to, do what you need to do to kind of reboot. Sometimes it's hard in busy season, but, figure out a way. For me, I always try to, if I'm busy, I try to work, quite a bit, at night on weekdays. My kids go to bed at 7, which I think we've talked about bedtimes. The earlier the bedtime, the better. So my kids are in bed by 7. My wife goes to sleep like 9 o'clock. So for me, my best time, I've got no email, no kids, nothing to disrupt me. So I'll stay up late and work. And for me, that's the best option for me. I'd rather stay up, work late on the weekdays, and then that way I can unplug a little bit on the weekends. Maybe I work a couple hours, but I try to unplug. If that's going out to, brewery with friends on the weekend and family, or trying to sneak in around, or whatever it may be, you got to take care of yourself first. And sometimes you just need to, reboot. And so, try to do a mini reboot in busy season, make plans for right after busy season. I always take time off early May, every year, every time. always try to do something with the family. To me, that's important. I guess, going back to young Brett, single Brett, it's take a trip, go visit friends out of town or something like that. But I think it's realizing, hey, I've got this, certain time of year where I'm a little bit busier, but then I've got all this other opportunity the rest of the year to utilize the, large amount of PTO that I've got. But yeah, I think a lot of it too is communicating it too, and talking to your mentors. Hey man, I'm burnt out. I need a moment, because they're going to try to work with you as best as they can, and help coach you through it. So I think oftentimes people get very short-sighted, and will get burnt out and thinking a career change is the ticket. And that's, I guess, maybe a different subject, but I think if you take a step back and look at what you have presented in front of you and the opportunity you have in front of you, I think it's a pretty easy decision, to stick it out. I think the older you get, the more experience you get, the easier it is to have more flexibility. And so I think you just kind of get accustomed to the schedule. The longer you work, you kind of realize, hey, this time of year I'm going to be a little bit busier than others. Or in my scenario, I've kind of modified my schedule. So my clientele, and this is kind of unique to Austin, I think, but sorry for long-winded answers. I don't have short answers ever. But yeah, so with me, a lot of the folks that we're working with, they don't have tight deadlines. And so they're just getting audits for the, in the event they potentially get acquired a few years down the road. And so I've got my schedule where it's spread out, where I've got probably more jobs outside of busy season now than I do within. And so, whenever you get to the level where you're bringing in the clients and you're working with, your contacts, you can kind of build your own schedule. And so for me, my book is spread out. So my busy season isn't your traditional busy season, really. So that's kind of something else that I think you could look to as well. Here I am as a staff senior manager. It's like, how would I do this differently? Do I have to have a busy season? For me, the answer is not so much. We're just kind of constant. And it's a little bit of give and take, right? Like, things slow down quite a bit outside of busy season. When you have a true busy season, for me, we're just kind of steady. So there's always kind of something, but never a huge rush. So kind of a different outlook from that standpoint that I never really thought of until really I started looking at my book of business here and looking at deadlines. That's just kind of the way it fell down here. So then I realized, I can control this. There's no reason to push everything into January to April if these guys are just getting out for the sake of having it. So.
Yeah, and I think, there's just different seasons of life, both your personal life and your professional life. So as you navigate it, but I know Whitley Penn has always been a place where the firm changes with you as your life changes. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to progress in their career, kind of going back to making it what they want, because the firm can change with you as you go through those different changes of life, which I think is really important when you are trying to figure out where you want to be and where you want to grow your career. So tell me some of your favorite ways to stay up to date on latest, whether it's trends, regulations, maybe client news, and why is that important to do?
Yeah, so my background has been pretty well focused in the financial institution industry. So being involved with those organizations, I'm constantly getting emails and updates, about that industry specifically, as well as going to regular recurring meetings. So pretty well informed of what's happening there. On top of that, from the accounting standpoint, we've got a lot of different resources we can utilize, both in terms of software or email updates that we get. And so get daily emails from accounting today and various resources like that. But between that and using Accounting Research Manager to see there's any new standards out there, and the internal trainings we've got we've got a ton of training. It's one of the nice things with our firm, a firm our size, is that we've got a lot of regular recurring structured training, even by industry. And so I think a lot of those are pretty beneficial. We've got great leaders in each industry that do a really good job of being the expert for that industry and making sure that they're communicating all the changes that are applicable within those industries. So yes, there's a lot of various ways I think to stay on top of it.
Yeah, we're always students, right? Always
That's right.
learning. So last, any books, podcasts, shows you're watching, what can you share with our audience? They could be for fun or something good you're reading, maybe on the professional development side.
Yeah, in terms of books, no new books. Not much of a reader. I get every once in a
That's
while.
okay.
I'm blessed to get a book shipped to me from our chief growth officer, so I'm sure I'll be reading a new book
It's a
soon.
good one. I've started it. The
I haven't
Gap
read
in the
it
Game.
yet, so
It's a good concept, but
I
you're
didn't
too
put
busy reading up on your client accounting news.
That's right.
Takes up your reading
It's hard to
capacity.
read for pleasure when there's just so much happening in the accounting world that you just can't overlook. So
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and sometimes it's good to have things that maybe aren't work related. I'm sure you like to watch your golf. That gets your mind off something and off work.
So we do a lot of sports in my house right now. So back in January, I took my kids up to Waco to watch Texas Tech play Baylor, and my then 4-year-old, he just turned 5, and my 6-year-old went with me, and ever since then, it's just like nonstop basketball. My 5-year-old now is just everything is basketball, and so it's 9 a.m. on Sunday, and he's wanting to watch basketball. And so thank God for ESPN on demand. I can go find any game now. We watch a lot of Big Ten. Yeah, I watch a lot of Big Ten basketball because they play on Sundays, it turns out. So we got a lot of sports at the demand of my kids. My wife and I recently started watching Inventing Anna.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that one. It's on Netflix. It's the same girl from the Ozarks.
Oh yeah.
So Ruth. So she's
been in a lot lately.
Yeah, she's good, man. So we started watching that. So we're pretty much through that currently. We got the last episode to watch, which we'll probably watch tonight. So I don't know. There's always something that's popping up that's new and
all the fun stuff. I feel like basketball is a better option than maybe some
yeah.
of the shows
The nice thing with Inventing Anna is it's on the background and it's more of a distraction for my wife, and I might sit there and do some work while she's watching that. But a lot of basketball. Now with March Madness behind us, it's kind of golf moving into baseball. So I've actually been watching a decent amount of college baseball as well. Then of course you had the Masters last weekend, and before that you had Dell Match Play here in Austin. So there's a lot of intrigue there, and now you've got the matches coming up in DFW. So I'll be watching the Colonial and Byron Nelson as well. So pretty much sports, and then we sprinkle in a little bit of dump trucks and tractors.
There you go.
At the request of my 2-year-old. So
got to keep it all balanced.
Yeah, man, we've made some improvements over the years. Went from Blippi and oh gosh, what's the one? Paw Patrol. So we've upgraded from those to sports. So really, we're in a pretty good spot in the Murphy household in terms of TV. So I'm fortunate, I guess, when it comes to kid demands on TV. Oh, how could I forget? I've probably watched Home Alone 1 through 5, like 1,000 each.
Wow.
And Home Alone 1 still hits hard, for the record. It's still just as good as it was back in 1991.
It is a good one.
I don't know if you grew up watching that like I did, but my kids love it. My 2-year-old thinks it's hilarious. I don't know if I should admit that my 2-year-old watches Home Alone, but he's got the book.
To get the kids on like the classics that you grew up with.
Oh man, every night it's Home Alone. So we read the Home Alone book, which I had no idea existed. So so quality stuff for sure.
See, you are reading books.
I read like 20 minutes every night to my kids. Well, not every night.
Yes.
But
some of those kid books are long. I'll look at it.
They really are.
This one's a little long for tonight.
Yeah, last night we had the Berenstein Bears go to the dentist. so that was a pretty big challenge for me. So yeah, for good, I am keeping up with my reading,
There you
just
go.
in the form of kid books. So
It's fun. It all counts.
that's right. That's
Well,
right.
awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Brett, and for everyone tuning in, for listening to this Develop podcast series, getting to learn more about Brett, his tips, his opportunity, how his career has changed over the years, but he's really made it into the career he wants. So thank you for joining us today, Brett. We're excited to have everyone hear about you and your story.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Oh.